I just opened up the chat, so please let us know where you're calling in from. We still have the Asea 5. It's just a different 5. So Ray, why don't you introduce, since you know them a whole lot better than I do. This is Dr. Ray Dixon. He is in, where are you, Dr. Ray?
Well, Thailand.
Thailand.
Yay.
Cool.
8 a.m. in the morning. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the regular Asea 5. As Dr. Maureen would say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but it ain't where we are. So I'm sure it is where we are. Let's just mention I'm sitting in today for Dr. Lee and Maureen, and we have some special guests. But before we go to them, we'll mention the anchors forever, Jim Glenn, who is our financial expert with a wonderful financial background, who I need to have a conversation with one day to save me some tax. And Glenn is our nutritionist and personal trainer extraordinaire. So these guys we all love and see every single week. Now, it's my great pleasure because these two gentlemen essentially were part of my introduction to Asea. So we have Dan Doyle there in Honolulu. Say good day, Dan. Dan, I spoke to the second day that I was introduced to Asea, and probably the day before I joined, actually. He's the man that said to me, stand by for miracles, and he was right, even though at the time I wasn't convinced. And then we've got Mal Sword, who currently is in the Highlands of Scotland, which happens to be where my ancestors come from as well. In fact, I think we might be attached to the same clan, Mal, which is the Baird clan. My father's second name is Baird, and Mal's second name is Baird as well. And indeed, ironically, Mal came to help me a matter of 3 weeks after I joined with Asea. So it's my great privilege to be here with these two guys who have helped me enormously along my journey. So who's going to introduce
Dan, I saw something on Facebook today, and I don't know when you posted it, if it was today.
Yeah, I love this.
But it really hit a chord with me, and I actually sent it out as part of the invitation for tonight. But it says, who I am today wasn't built overnight. I've pulled myself out of dark places, insecurities, betrayal, heartaches. I had to go through things to get to where I am now, and I am proud of myself. I will continue to shape myself into a better version of who I was yesterday. Dan, that is amazing. There's a story behind that.
Yeah.
Long story short. So
go for it.
Go for it, sir.
I mean, those words, you know, when you're going through those, you know, there's obviously major health challenges that I had. There was the heartbreak of going to business with people that you trusted, that were partners of yours that did the wrong thing. I mean, many things. I mean, there was a lot of good things along the way as well. But long story short, I mean, Jerry Yerke was saying the other day on a call, told my story thousands and thousands of times, but there's a lot of people on here that probably haven't heard it. And for those who haven't, I'm not going to go through photos or anything today. Something that you can use or look at is go to YouTube. There's a 25-minute version with photos. Asea Dan Doyle, do whatever you want with it. Have a look at that. Share it with people if that helps you. Fantastic. But I like to go back and start really early because I hated school, guys. I distracted myself from school by playing many sports, recognizing that my parents were working really hard and 3 jobs each wasn't the way that I wanted to go in life. So the education system was something that I rebelled against, distracted myself by playing many sports. Got into, as we discussed earlier, Jim played rugby league for 12 years. And I've got to mention and a plug for my team, Parramatta Eels, who's in the grand final in around about 30 hours time. So 36 years since we won a grand final. Big time year for me. A lot of emotions happening here. And even with, you know, the story that I'm going to tell now and how it all came together and what's happening this week. But I, did judo, gymnastics, aerobics, surfing, got into bodybuilding later in life, hand in hand what went with bodybuilding. Was getting into traditional business, owning my own gym, but realizing when I left traditional employment, it was I didn't want to exchange time for money anymore. Not thinking in network marketing, thinking of traditional business, and that was the way to go. So back in my early 20s, I got into traditional business, and I became very successful building and selling these traditional businesses from inception. I employed about 3,500 people over 20 years, different industries, health and fitness, hospitality, security, construction, you name it. I had car wash, cafes, concreting, excavation. There was a modeling agency at one stage. I had a pub. I had multiple security companies that I'd built and sold. I had a really good run, really, really good run. And that sort of pulled up in 2011, and not the run with being successful in traditional business, but the run due to losing my health. So I always ask people the question too, coming off the subject a little bit, what's the most important thing in life? Most people say family. Well, for me, with my experience, that's not number one. It's actually health. You don't have your health. I was lying on a lounge back then, feeling sorry for myself, going through 2.5 years of what I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy due to using a horrendous weed killer, which got into my system. So I got the bad end of the stick, and there's a lot of lawsuits, as you know, going around through the US in regards to this. And I battled, and I really struggled for 2.5 years. There were days going through what they were putting me through in that hospital where I didn't want to live anymore. And I even got into self-destruction mode where I wanted to drink myself to death. It was a terrible time, not giving myself the opportunity or getting the knowledge about getting my body into the right shape. I was literally in self-destructive mode. That all changed when, well, firstly, there was a friend of mine who did play the highest levels of rugby league in Australia, Johnny Manor, and you guys have heard that story. 21, back to playing the highest levels of rugby in Australia after going through a horrendous time, similar to what I was going through at that time. Fortunately, he went back into hospital after being in remission, went back through things that made him lose all his hair, a lot of weight. Never came out. We lost him at the age of 23. I've been getting emotional on my presentations this week because if he was still around, he'd be in this game this weekend. So unfortunately, his life was cut short, but I didn't really turn myself around psychologically, mentally, wanting to live until I asked my doctors the question, what was going to happen to my health moving forward after 2.5 years of what they tried? And the answer was to get your affairs in order. Now, that, you just imagine, Mal, you know what I'm like. If once I flick the switch, for him to tell me that I was still in a lot of trouble, that made me want to live. That made me want to survive. So that's when I went and moved into from self-destructive mode, eating spaghetti every single day, which is something that probably wasn't a good thing with what I was going through. Did research, cleaned up my diet, spent a lot of money on nutritional supplements, super juices, antioxidants from the network marketing industry, moving to alternative functional and all of these things. I thought, well, Dr. Ray 10 years ago, I would have thought he was a quack. I would have thought it was just pure quackery. So I had to find out that he was real, that a chiropractor was real, a homeopath was real, naturopath. So I did all of that, moved into that area of health. And after 2 years of looking after myself, obviously it still wasn't enough to get me over the line because my health was still heading in the wrong direction. So Bart Cotter, a friend of ours in Australia, reached out to me in 2014, said, I think I found something that can help. Introduced us to Asea, flew to the US, had a fly in. Mal came on that trip. He had a health challenge that he had for decades himself. And we listened all about this breakthrough technology, Fortunately, heard about the incredible ethos of this company. We were concentrating purely on our health, but the results I had in 3 days were just mind-blowing, phenomenal. Going through my body expelling that much rubbish in such a short period of time, in 3 hours, I had little red spots all over my upper torso. In 12 hours, a 20-year caffeine intolerance, a stomach issue, seemed to have gone away. And in 2 to 3 days, because I had so much lung damage from what they put me through in that hospital, my lungs were functioning perfect. I had the belief to stay on the product. Went back to Australia, kept drinking these amazing little molecules. 12 months later, everything was history. So my health was flying. And as time went on, obviously, for us guys in our 50s, we want to look younger too. So not only getting my health back from those 2 major challenges, but multiple injuries from playing sports, 20 years of pollen problems, my whole body was rebuilt in 12 months of taking this product. So obviously in that period of time, it took a few months because I was selfish. I was concentrating on my health. But in that period of time, it would have been an injustice not to share this with anybody else. And I started doing that. We were in a position, if you look at the financial side, where we literally lost everything. And for 2.5 years, we were traveling in a van, made that look all rosy on Facebook that we were having a great time, but we couldn't afford to pay rent. We went bankrupt. We actually went bankrupt on credit cards. Something that I don't talk about much because I'm not proud of, because we had such a great credit rating, but we lost everything. And credit cards got us through to a certain point where there was none of that left either. And living on a disability of a couple of $100 a week still doesn't work in a van. It was still very, very tough, but we couldn't afford rent. And end of the day, within 12 months, we were traveling the world full time when we started sharing this with others. So literally for the last 6.5, 7 years, we've been traveling, doing this. Ended up with a nice place here in Hawaii. There'll be a place we're settling in Australia, settling on a property next month in Byron Bay, which would be fantastic. And I would have never thought not only to get my health back, to regain that, but to create a life or a lifestyle that I could have never have dreamed of. It's just amazing. That's the long story short.
That's wonderful.
So Mal, how do you guys know each other? How far back do you guys go, Mal, with you and Danny?
Doyle and I go back to about 2010, 2011, Doyle, I think. We were involved in another business prior to Asea together. And so we met through that business. In fact, the roles were slightly reversed then. Danny was actually in my organization. And of course, now I'm a part of his organization. So we go back about 10 or 11 years.
Awesome. It's great.
What's your story, Mal? I know it's similar, but your 2 stories, guys, are just, and where you are today is mind-boggling. It gives me hope. It gives everybody hope that's watching this. So, Mal, I love your tenacity and who you are and the way you share this. And I'm going to have you, if you don't mind, both of you kind of share how you share what we have. But what's your story, sir?
So my story is somewhat similar to Doyley's. When we first went to look at this technology back in October 2014, I went there specifically for health reasons. I obviously went as well because I knew Danny was seriously unwell. And then I had also gone through a period of time where I'd lost everything. I also had to go bankrupt. I'm not proud of that either, but and I hung on for as long as I could. It was a series of decisions that I made through certain events, and I had set up firewalls. I had 3 firewalls, but the damage was so big. I did a big property development that went in Australia. We say went pear-shaped. Really went pear-shaped. And of course, the damage from that was so big that it took down all the firewalls, and so I ended up losing everything and having to go bankrupt. And it was a really low time in my life. for lots of different reasons. I won't go into all of those, but for a man, when he loses everything and incapable of even supporting his family, his children, is demoralizing. And, you know, at that stage I was around 60, 61 years of age. And so to go bankrupt, end up in bankruptcy at that age, it really messes with your belief. It messed with my belief. I didn't know, I had no belief in myself. And, you know, people that know me always question me when I say that, because they said, but hang on, Mal, you built massive organizations. And I said, yeah, but when you lose everything, when you've lost absolutely everything. In fact, when I began my Asea journey in February 2016, I was worse than bankrupt, because I was $130,000 behind zero that I owed to people, friends of mine that had kind of carried me and lent me money to help me. And I vowed that I would return that to them. I vowed that I would pay that back to them. But, you know, there'll be people on the call, I'm sure, that are in kind of desperate situations like both Danny and I were. And I've done a lot of work to try and understand why, you know, people, when they go through big challenges, why some people are able to come back and why some people seem to struggle. And I think a lot has to do with belief in themselves. And for me, I gained that belief back progressively. It wasn't like, it wasn't ever like, you know what, I think that with this business, with the Asea business, I can recover completely financially. Because in the early stages, I never thought that. You know, when I went up to see Bart Cotter in that time he was in Noosa, and he asked me a question. He said, so, and this was February 2016, he asked me a question. He said, so where do you see yourself being financially at the end of 2016? And I said, you know, Bart, I know exactly why you're asking me that question. And it's exactly the kind of question that I would ask somebody if they were getting started. And I remember kind of looking down and I said, you know what, right now, I just want to make $100 a week. That's all I could see. Because I knew that if I could somehow get to $100 a week, then maybe I could see to the next step of $250 or $1,000 a month. So for me, it was a journey back from losing everything. But I also realized that the issue that I had to master was my mindset. It was my belief, going from complete lack of belief and rebuilding that when I had lost absolutely everything, questioning, can I come back again? And people were telling me, yeah, of course you can, but it's not what people tell me or tell somebody else. Although that's helpful when you believe in somebody, and often we believe in others more than they believe in themselves. But it was just a constant barrage of information. And I did lots of different things. I went to see kinesiologists when I could afford. I went to see different people that could help me with my mindset. I took on a mindset coach again when I started having a little bit of money, and then I listened incessantly to audibles, which I still do to this day. I'm still listening to anything that can help with my belief. And I love what Bob Proctor says. He said he went on this quest for personal development. He said to find out about him, he actually became a millionaire after being kind of broke. And he wanted to find out why. Why have I done that? And I like that same journey, because if I can find out what the triggers are for me, then I can help people deal with their challenges as well, get through their lack of belief and their lack of, when they've gone to a place where they kind of lose everything. And then so the journey started from there, and then I just kept at it, and gradually things changed, and they became pretty good after a while. Became very good after a while.
I think that's why go ahead, Dan.
Mal,
Ray, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's fine, Jim. You mentioned that when you went to Utah with Dan, you also had a chronic or long-term autoimmune skin condition. How did that go?
Initially, no response at all. In fact, the condition that I have, which I realize I can't mention, is just absolutely stubborn. And I've had it for a long time. And, I've been told, Ray, that, once you have a certain condition, you ingrain it in your subconscious mind that it's not going to go. It's complex. It was very complex. It took a long time for me to see changes in that condition, and it was kind of frustrating, I guess, in a way, because I watched what Danny's journey had been dealing with something, because my condition wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't going to take me out. It was just embarrassing, if I could put it that way. It was embarrassing to look at, as you know the condition I'm talking about. And it actually got to the point where it was almost completely gone until I had the vaccinations, and then it started to aggravate it, because that has aggravated my immune system. But then, of course, I stepped up my dose, and it's pretty much completely gone now again. But in the initial stages, it didn't. And so, the belief in the product, I needed some time. I watched what happened with Danny. I didn't actually engage with Asea that was in October 2014. My journey to start building the Asea business didn't start until February 2016, when Asea actually launched into Australia. But by then, of course, I'd met with Doyle. I think Doyle, it was early December 2015, and I could see Doyle and I hadn't seen each other since we'd been to the fly-in in October 2014. And when I went to meet Doyle again at Byron Bay, funnily enough, in December 2015, I knew as soon as I walked in to meet him, we actually met at a pub at Byron Bay. I mean, he just looked like a box of fluffy ducks. He looked like he was 20 years younger.
Awesome.
And he just was glowing with health, because I'd been through the journey with him when he wasn't healthy. He was grey, his eyes were sunk. I mean, he wasn't a well man, and he didn't look like a well man. But as soon as I walked in there, I'm looking at him, I think, my goodness, it just looked amazing. So that was
there's actually a number of sort of really important lessons here, I think, for all of us. And that is, Dan's got very quick results in a life-threatening situation. When you were told to go home and get your affairs in order, that's a euphemism for, I think we're going to lose you. So Dan's getting quick results. So obviously a belief in the product is going to happen very quickly for Dan. In your case, it might not be a life-threatening circumstance, but it's certainly a very deep-seated autoimmune condition. So again, time of healing varies dramatically depending upon how life-threatening that condition is. The inner doctor, as Dr. Lee would refer to it, will go to work on something more life-threatening more quickly. But nonetheless, over time, Mal, you still got that result, but your belief in the product was more in your face from people around you, like Dan. So the belief is built in many different ways. I personally didn't build a belief because of how I felt on the product, because I felt perfectly fine before I started the product. So, but I also see these miracles every day working with other people. So that's important. And the time period of use is very important as well, as is the dose, how much we actually need to correct the deficiency that we all have. On that note, Dan, how much did you take?
Yeah, I was curious of that.
Yeah.
Well, in my first few days in Salt Lake at the office, I mean, Mal and I, they were just giving us the product. So we were drinking as much as we want. We were, Mal, at least half a bottle a day while we're there. We just kept getting pouches of the product. And, that's where the results came super fast. And we see that now, obviously. The more you take, the quicker things happen.
But Danny, that came for you, not for Mal. You saw the results. Mal, you did not.
I did not.
Okay.
At the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you go back to Mal's experience or lack of experience too, if he was zoned in on maybe some subtle things happening over those few days, maybe he would have noticed something with better sleep or, whatever it may be. But I think, concentrating on the skin issue, and, as we know now, autoimmune, there's a lot of damage in the body, and the process is going to take a long, long time because there's so much damage. So it was going to be very hard for Mal to get results in a very short period of time unless we sort of lathered him with this, and maybe there would have been a reaction where it would have got worse before it got better.
With the detox, with detox, right?
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Dr. Ray, can you go ahead and give the medical disclaimer, please?
I shall indeed. Asea does not claim to treat, cure, or prevent any disease condition whatsoever. It is a supplement or a bioreplenishment formula of redox signaling molecules, which post-puberty we're all deficient in. And as such, and due to that registration process as a supplement, by law, no claims medically can be made, but it provides the body with what it needs to heal itself. And that is the fundamental underlying paradigm of all natural healing products, whether it's herbal, nutritional, they give the body what it needs and the inner doctor will heal itself. One further point I might add, Dan, also, and Mal, is you're exactly right about autoimmune being deep and taking a longer period to reverse, but also the effects on the skin, hair, and nails will come last. You know, in the inner doctor priority scale, the brain and central nervous system comes first. The organs vital to survival come second. Then come the other organs like your spleen, etc. And last priority will be skin, hair, and nails.
Yeah, they're not a priority, are they?
And you went to home office. How critical was that for you to believe? And when you met this senior, I don't know if Virtus was there at that time. What was your impression of them? What were your memories of that? And how important was that to your success?
Mal, you definitely tell this story way better than me because of our experience literally being there with Virtus Norton. So if you don't mind, mate, love to hear this part from you.
Thanks, Doyle. So Danny and I went to the fly-in not for financial reasons. We didn't go there to at least I didn't, and I don't think you did, Doyle, either. We were involved in another business together at that stage, albeit that it was having some challenges. But when we were there for health reasons. Obviously, Danny was there because he was, wanting to stay here, and I was there because I wanted to see if this technology could help with my skin issue. And there's a lot of different memories and emotions that I have from that meeting. But one of the main things I remember, because Virtus was in the room, as was Tyler, and one of the things that impressed us more than anything was the people. And, I tell people that on that day, my head was saying, Mal, don't listen. When they started talking about the opportunity, the business opportunity, my head was saying, man, I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to hear this. I'm not here for that. And my heart was saying about Virtus Norton, here's a man that my heart wanted to be in business with. After experiences that we had in a previous company, I think it's fair to say, I won't mention the company, but the further that Danny and I got up the order, the further we moved to the top of the order in that company, the more we realized that the ownership was not as we had thought it was, lacked integrity, morality, decency, everything that Virtus Norton stands for. We didn't have that in the other company. So whilst I'm there and I'm thinking, I don't want to hear anything about the business, my heart was saying, you know what? I wanted to be in business with this man. I want to be in business with Virtus Norton, and it was very powerful. I remember Tyler Norton did a great talk a couple of years ago in Australia, and he said, to build a business like Asea, he said, you need 3 beliefs. Number 1, he said, you have to have belief in the company. You do, because it's not our company, although Asea makes us feel like it is our company. Tyler, when we were in Monaco a week or so ago, gave an incredible talk that this is my company, this is your company. And I very much feel that it is our company. But I don't go to bed at night wondering if Tyler Norton or Virtus Norton or any of the executives with this company are going to do the wrong thing by me. I don't have any problem. I have absolute belief that these are men of integrity and decency, and I can build my business on that rock. And Danny and I needed that. We needed to know that this was a company of substance and value. The second belief you have to have is the belief in the product. That came really fast with Doyle. It was a little slow for me. But you can rely on other people's testimonials. There's 2 sites that you can go to share people's testimonials. And look, either these people are the best liars in the world, or this technology is one of the most incredible breakthroughs that we will ever see in our lifetime. And Danny believes that it is. I believe that it is. And I'm sure most of the people on the call believe it is. That's a second belief. The third belief we have to have is belief in ourselves. And that's the one that I had to struggle with. That was the one that I had to journey back with, and helped, of course, by other people and Doyle certainly. But that meeting, it's a good question, because it was all about heart. It was all about, this is who the company stands for. They're a company of incredible morality, incredible decency. And it's just, if you're looking for a place to anchor your business and your future, you could not find a better home. In my opinion, I'll never see another Asea again. I'm not a spring chicken, and some of you on the call might be in your 20s and your 30s. And if you don't engage with Asea right now, you might have to wait until you're my age before you find another one like this. But I'm almost 30 years into the industry. In fact, November's 30 years, and I won't see another company like this. It's an incredible company.
Thanks. If I was going to say, if I could add to that, there's people that join our business that have been in the industry for 10, 20, 30, 40, over 50 years. And these guys, every single one of them says, this is the home I've been looking for all of my life. I had a call today and was briefly introduced to somebody by Jerry Yerke, who's successful in another company. And he said, the last thing that I would have thought is the founders would have sold out. And that's what happened with this company. So the great thing about what we've got, Virtus Norton didn't sell out to the pharmaceutical industry. And as Mal said, we know this company well enough, these guys, their intention, their purpose, that will never happen. This will become a generational company. It won't be around for decades. It will be around for a long, long, long time, hundreds of years. The thing that really resonates with me all of the time, and especially, and thanks, Mel, for that whole story, but just to, I suppose, fill in one gap, is the ethos of the company, which is something that Tyler Norton talks about absolutely everywhere. And when he stood up and said, didn't wrap us in cotton wool and, do everything to get us on board, when he said, this business model may not suit some of you in the room. We don't want anybody involved in this business that has ego and economics above principles and purpose. That got me thinking at that time. So even though we were there for our health, there was something in the back of my head saying, who are these guys? What are their intention? Like, just amazing to hear that. It was a breath of fresh air.
And I suggest, from a natural health practitioner perspective that's been in this industry for 43, 44 years practice. My first patients, I was 22 years of age. And contrary in a way to what Mal said, that, you might have to wait another few generations before something like this ever comes along again. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't believe anything like this ever will come along. I've spent my life, as I've discussed on other Asea 5s, looking for a universal health, natural product with no toxicity, no allergenicity, that will help every cell in the human body to reverse dis-ease, in other words, malfunctioning conditions. I gave up looking because I didn't think there was such a product available. Well, we now know there is. And so this is the greatest health natural product that has ever been discovered in human history. You can't get anything smaller than nano size that works on every cell in the human body. So there is nothing that will ever trump this. When you go beyond the nano-sized charged molecules involved with redox signaling, you're moving off the physical realms. You're moving into the energy beyond chemistry. That's when you start talking prana and life force and, chi or ki or whatever you want. But there is not going to be another physical product that will be discovered, in my opinion, ever, that will match this product. And then put that alongside of the integrity of the company that Mal and Dan have packaged together here. And I'm of exactly the same persuasion as them, which I've had to build that belief and discovery in my own journey which they played a part in, but we still have to build our own belief, as Mal said. This is the perfect storm. This is the perfect synchronicity moment for anyone that's not just looking for the best they can do for their health ever, but gestalt off and achieve anything you want in life with work and effort, as these two gentlemen have led the way for me.
Yeah, I do, based on the perfect storm, I do want to put my prayers and thoughts out to all the people in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
It's a horrible period of time, what's going on there. So we do pray. If you're listening from Florida, we're with you in thought.
Yeah, your family.
Mal, how do you share either the technology or the opportunity? And Dan, same question to you.
Initially, I share the opportunity with people because, there's two ways to build a business. You can build it on the product, you can build it on people. I choose to build the business on people. I think that, our industry is about growing people, developing people. So I build it predominantly when my first conversations with people are on the opportunity. And if they're not looking for an opportunity, if they're not looking for additional income, and let me just add to that, I think that in the next 2 years, I think, as we dive in deeper into the global recession, which I think is going to last for about 3 years, in my opinion. And I've seen this before because of the length of time I've been in the industry. We're about to go into what I think is going to be a massive growth phase in our industry. Because when we dive into this recession, more people start looking not for $1 million a year or $2 million, but they're looking for $500 a month. Over here in England, in Scotland, where I am right now, the number of people, because of the energy costs have gone up 50%. There are people over here that can't afford to heat their homes now. So there are going to be thousands and millions of people around the world looking for an extra $500 a month, looking for an extra $1,000 a month. And so this is our reach to people with a business like ours. It's not based on capital, based on effort. It's just an incredible time for us. So I talk to people about the opportunity first. If they say no to the opportunity, then I go to the health question. And the reason I do that, I know that if they come in on the opportunity, they will learn enough about the technology to be able to go and share with people that they know that run well about the product. So you can build it on the product. I happen to think it's a little slower. And at my age and in my circumstance, I needed to escalate the speed with which I built the business. If I had started when I was in my 20s or 30s, I could have maybe done it a little bit differently. But at my age, I needed to try and come back quickly. So I talked to people about the opportunity first. I opened that door at a very simple question, really about just asking them if they're open to looking at other income options, if they're open to looking at other income potential. So that's really how I open the door.
Thank you, Mal. Dan?
For the sake of the exercise, Jim, and I know, but your career, what did you do for a career before?
I was a stockbroker.
And in stockbroking, did all of your family and friends listen to you with your expertise in what you did?
It took my mom, I think, 20 years.
So I'm getting to a point, I think, just to, same thing, elaborate with what Mal just said, which I did flick the switch on talking about the product probably after 3 years to moving into looking for those business builders, people. We can bring 10 sick people on board and help and support them. Fantastic. But if we can get it to 10 people that are network marketers, influential, business people, motivated people, that's going to get to hundreds or even thousands of people. So, but just going back to the reason I asked that question is that we've made a lot of mistakes in the past. And there's a lot of people out there, people on this call, that would be still reaching out to people they know, and they're trying to be a prophet in their own backyard. It just doesn't work. So just simple lesson, and keep it so basic, guys, because if you continue to do that, I've been in the business for 8 years next month. I still can't talk to the people that I know, even remotely. I've got to pique interest and get them to that third party, that expert, that world authority, pull it away from me. So if you can stick to the script, and if people think they've got a good relationship and rapport with somebody, and they're going out and doing that, and regurgitating, vomiting all over them, and they're not getting anywhere. If they're bringing on 1 out of 10 people, they've got to turn things around real quick because they're just going to burn through everybody they know. So it's important just to say enough, and we're not trying to hide what we have from anybody. It's just the way it works. The internet's a big place at the moment, and people just go and do a bit of a search, but peak interest and get them to somebody else as quickly as possible. So regardless of whether you're talking to somebody, as Mal does, about the opportunity first, about the product, it's always a matter of piquing interest and plugging them into somebody as quickly as possible. Mal's going to do way better, or Ray, or you guys. If I'm, piquing interest with somebody, you'll do way better with somebody that I know than me trying to handle that conversation myself.
I think that's a sorry, and just quickly, that's a really important thing that you just said, Dan. I just want to sort of stamp that because I'm stamping it right here, right now. So what you've just said is, in your own backyard, and funnily enough, I'm thinking of my family right now, including my brother. And so what you're saying is they will pay less attention to the seriousness of your commitment and what you're recommending than a third party who you personally may know more, but the fact is it's a third party outside of you within your own ambit that can have the greatest effect. I'm rubber stamping that because I haven't heard that before. I actually get the three-way and the experts in different areas, but that's different. You actually might be a better expert than the third party. But what you're saying is because of the way relationships are, people closest to you have opinions that go back 40 or whatever years, and they may not necessarily pay as much attention to you as a third party. So I think that's a profound lesson for all of us, what you've done there. Go ahead, Annie.
Well, just to add to that, Dan, you wear a certain hat for these family members or people you're close to. So you do need that other person, their perspective, because they're going to think, well, how could you be an expert? You just started. I mean, back, years ago. But, when we get people new in, we teach them to say very little, plant a seed, let us water it, let us be the expert. We use experts when we need to share with somebody, because doing that makes it duplicatable. If you say too much, you don't make as much. I mean, you just say very little to do well in the business, and people are busy. Part-timers, their excuse may be, too much time spent, but if they let us help them. I remember hearing your journey when you first were getting out there, growing in Australia, that you took, maybe I'm not terming this right, but you took hold of someone's prospects and you helped call them for them instead of, they don't have time or they were not able to do it. You just took it on. And we do that as well. We try as much as we can to groom these people, but when they're busy doing this job or that, or kids or home life, let us step in. I was thinking about when y'all first got back from your trip. You're in Australia. I'm assuming it was already developed there. Obviously, assuming it was with the Renew 28. And so all y'all had was Renew 28, right? For a period of time, right?
I don't think you had any of it.
Or did you have none when you first got there?
We were the pioneers of the Renew 28 in Australia. It just came out. They launched it into Australia. Okay. The Asea Redox cell signaling supplement wasn't officially released for another 2 years.
That's what I figured.
Year and a half. So we were actually building the business on wrinkles.
Okay, that was your target. Your target was wrinkles. Okay.
I mean, back then we didn't know the power of the product. With for anybody who didn't like anything on the outside from whatever they saw or whatever they felt, we didn't know the power of it back then. Right. So we were just getting people to take their photos. Rub some of this on, take another photo in 30 days, and that's predominantly
how you started.
Yeah,
and that's
a lot of before and afters.
That's exactly how Dan sponsored Lorraine, who sponsored me.
Okay.
Because Lorraine had a lot of freckles. And she had a
From
lot
the
of
sun, from sun, probably.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she was a Holland background. She was Australian, of course, but heritage. So fair skin, blonde hair, very sensitive to ultraviolet, a lot of skin damage. And she's told me that story many times, and she shares the photos of when. And originally she told me, Dad just said, here, try this, because she didn't want a bar of anything. And she just used it and took photos, and wow. And that was how the ring came in. So that was part of that era. And I might add, I think Thailand's the only country right now in the world that only has Renew 28.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so I'm actually in that situation a little bit myself, except you can see plenty of empty blue bottles in the background because I get back with me when I'm overseas all the time.
Guys, I think the reason I really can relate to both of you is that we did not file bankruptcy, but we blew our credit cards up long before, and praise God for friends that helped us.
We were very broke.
Can you speak to the people out there? Because I totally agree with you, Mal. I think we're getting ready to enter in a very difficult period. Can you talk to them and just why should they look at this? Why now? I wish they wouldn't wait until they got where we got, which is in a really bad spot as well. Can you talk to them real quick, both of you? Mal first.
Yeah, so there's a great saying, isn't it? Dig the well before you need it, but most people don't do that. Most people leave it to like we did our homework at kids, we do it at the last minute.
Not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy. So I think for me and for a lot of people, most people tend, I think, to be short-term thinkers. When I start new people with a business, I work around a dream, big reason, and it'll be something emotional. It'll be something like legacy or freedom. It'll be something really big. Then I reverse engineer that and say, okay, this is a kind of profile of time we're going to be looking at to make that happen, given that you put in extra amount of hours of work. Could be 18 months to 5 years. Generally, if you becoming financially independent in an industry like this is generally 18 months to 5 years. That's your time frame. If it takes you 6 years, is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. But build it incrementally to that. So we'll start a small journey. Exactly what I did. Start in little steps, because I had no belief. So one of the things I think we need to do is to meet people where they're at, given their level of emotion, their emotional quotient when they start. It's important to try and understand where they're up to. My emotional quotient was bankrupt. I was at minus emotional quotient. So sometimes we have to start people just incrementally. A lot of people that I talk to that are looking to start in the business now, one of the things I say to them is, look, if in the next 2 or 3 months we can help you make an extra $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month, does that justify you investing 10, 12, 15 hours a week for the next 2 or 3 months? So I'm looking always for tie downs, contracts, if you like, but break it down into little bite-sized chunks. When you lose everything, it's very difficult to look at the big picture. It's very hard. So break it down into little bite-sized chunks. Different people got different challenges, whether it's time, lack of belief in themselves. It's such a big one in a business like this. It's learning to deal with rejection. It's learning that when people say no, they're not saying no to you, they're saying no to the opportunity. It's learning a lot of little things, especially in the early stages. But I think if we can help people get to the bronze level and we can get them to the gold level, you can develop that person, develop that leader all the way through to the higher level. So really, when I start, people just break it down into little bite-sized chunks. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Right. Mal, I know you love your audibles. Can you please give everybody your top 3 for mindset? Because I agree. I think that's where the majority of people are they've been beat up, spit on, stepped on, destroyed by their family, friends, just like what Danny said. What are your top 3?
So the 3 that I start people with, 3 Audible books. Number 1 for getting started in the business, especially for people who've never been in this industry before, is a book called Mac 2 with Your Hair on Fire by Richard Bliss Brooke. It's a complete work. It's my go-to book when I need to reboot. He's got an incredible story there of somebody who never had any success, never had any experience, and within a few short years, 4 or 5 years, became a very wealthy, multi-millionaire. But he goes through all of the challenges that he had, the mindset, what he did to change his mindset, even a lot of stuff that he thought, this is just ridiculous. You know, the affirmations, the belief and things like that. And if you want more information on that, there's a gentleman I've come across recently called Bruce Lipton, Lipton. You can Google him. I'm listening to a lot of his podcasts on mindset and belief. Where do we get our belief from? And how do we re-engineer our belief in ourselves? How do we change that? But that's number one book. Number two is The 4-Year Career, also by Richard Westbrook. And the third one is a book called Go Pro by Eric Worre. So in the first month or 2 months or 3 months, if somebody new is just listening to those a lot, they're just fantastic works to get them started. On mindset, I love a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. I've listened to that over and over and over. Also, a book that I love is You Were Born Rich by the late Bob Proctor. That was the book that was transformational for me. That was the book that in 2016, I think I listened to that 20 plus times. I listened to over and over and over and over and over to regroove my brain, my mindset, to help change my belief and change my mindset. A fantastic.
Is that your favorite?
That's my
all-time favorite one.
Yeah,
okay.
That's my all-time favorite book for me.
Dan, and I know how much you love school. You know,
we're not going to grade you.
I'm ready to talk about the economy. Hey, you just said we're not in good times, and I think people think we're over the worst of it. I can see where it's going. I know where it's going. The Australian dollar is worth about $5 to the 100 US now. I mean, it's going down the toilet. All these currencies. I mean, you know, the only reason why the US is staying relatively strong is people are investing in bonds over here and propping up the dollar. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, things are super weak. And I believe we need to address the state of the economy with people and be honest about what's happening these days and what you know. And I mean, the last 2.5 years has just absolutely shattered everything, and everything's totally unstable. So in regards to talking to somebody, I think there's a lot of people out there that are scared and a lot of people that are stressed about their finances and how they're going to support their family. So I think speak to the concerns and help somebody to understand, you know, where we are right now. And there is a possibility to actually create and build another income with this incredible business model that we have and this platform. I mean, Mel touched on it, talking about recession. We in the industry is in a recession. It's a recession-proof business. And the first thing that people go out there and do is to buy good things for their health. I mean, so that's always going to be a priority. So we're in a great place. I mean, year after year, as you know, with volume and sales, everything for us through the 2.5 years up and up.
Yeah. And they can get their product paid for. And then of course we have, you know, bonuses and grow cash programs and trips and loyalty rewards can then turn into free products. So there are ways you find a way, right? When you were sick, you found a way to pay for it.
Yeah. So Dan, Mal, what we have, and I used to do a lot of IPOs, initial public offerings. Mal, I think both of you guys may have been in the financial industry as well. But if somebody would have come to you back then and said, we've got something that heals everything alive natively. I mean, come on, you're nuts, right? So, I have to believe in what I have. Like you, I had a rapid response with the technology, but yet a lot of people don't. And then they judge it on what happens in the first 5 minutes. But how do you get over that? Yes, I love the business, but I had to believe in the technology first. You know, I can't go out and sell the best pencil in the world. How do you guys deal with that?
For me, in the early stages, I had to rely on Danny's story. I mean, I knew his transformation. I mean, it was incredible. So whilst mine wasn't like that, it took a long time. I ran on Danny's transformation, totally, especially in the early years, absolutely, and relied on the sites where I could point people to the other testimonials that they've had. But Danny's story, I mean, I saw that play out. So for me, I already knew what the product would do, albeit somewhat frustrating that it didn't work that well in the early stages for me. And I'm kind of, how does that work? But I ran on Danny's belief of what had happened.
Danny?
Yeah, I think, if you hear these things and you keep these things in your mind that you're hearing on these calls, I go back to Tammy Gates' story. So in her 50s on a walking frame, skiing accidents, and her back was just wrecked and ruined. And she says, if I waited the 11 months to have that aha moment, I would have missed out on $50,000 worth of commissions. But the reason I went for it is because I believed in the science and understood the science from day one. And she said, imagine if I didn't do anything till I had that aha moment. Not only I wouldn't have received those thank you checks, but all those people wouldn't have been helped. So I think people, what I try and suggest is get on a product plan, minimum 3 months, take the product, work with them to get results, but at the same time, get a handful of your friends, your family, whoever it may be, on the product, because more than likely, you'll see miracles happening in them and believe that before you actually believe what's happening to you, because it happens so fast.
Okay,
So,
and the
yeah.
last one,
Ray?
real quick, Ray. The last one I want you guys to deal with, because we got a couple of minutes. We can go a little bit over. What about networking? A lot of people have been burned. A lot of people, I never had been a part of it before, so I didn't have any skeletons in the closet. How do you address people that go, is it one of those things? If it is, leave me alone. How do you respond to that? That's old school, but I mean, there's people out there that still say it.
I think if I could just address that, with people generally in the world, some people are glass half full and some people are glass half empty. The glass half empty, I don't think you can do much with them. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And so, you can waste a lot of energy trying to convert the people that are just not interested, move on. If people want to have a conversation, let me dialogue with you. Let me share with you why this is not like any other network marketing company. This is the most unlike network marketing business, network marketing company that I've ever seen. Now, people say, well, I know you're going to say that. Yeah, and I understand that. Let me give you the reasons why. If you're prepared to communicate, maybe I can help you. If you're not prepared to communicate, I can't help you. And I'm not going to try and convince somebody. I'm not going to do that because it's just too hard to do that. But if somebody's prepared to, I said, would you like me to address that question? Do you mind if I speak to that? I've been in the industry 30 years. I get it. I've been in one of those companies. I understand what it's like to have your heart broken. I get it. But can I address that question for you? And if people are prepared to dialogue, then I can help them. Again, it's just being genuine with people and authentic with people. But there's a group of people, they just don't want to listen. They've already made their mind up. So I have to let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, next.
I love that. Thank you, Mal. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Mel. We're not a convincing business. We're not here to sell anything to anybody. We're here just to educate and inform people. And I can't stand people that, make decisions on things they've been uninformed about. So the first thing is obviously to try and help them to understand what we have. I did some training. If anyone wants to go and have a look, it's on my Facebook, and it's basic training, but it talks about a lot of these things. And we don't want to get to the point where someone's going to take a restraining order out on us because we're harping on, and trying to get them on board. As Tyler says, if your sister says no, let her go.
Right.
So if somebody says, is a pyramid thing or is, network marketing or whatever, I mean, really the question that you've got to ask is, have you had experience in this type of business model? I mean, for me, I'd never go back to a traditional job or traditional, building traditional business again. But if somebody says, oh, no, I've been involved in that type of business, I, get a bit cheeky and I'll say, go back to them and say, have you, ever recommended a movie and go through that process, recommended, the thing is that this is something totally different. Well, your experience with that other company is your experience with that other company. It's not what we are. So just, open your mind and have a look and make a decision after you've been informed.
And with your background in business, I mean, honestly, who would want to do brick and mortar? Who would want to have an adult babysitting class where if you've got more than 2 employees, you're an adult babysitting company? I mean, would you ever want, I mean, why would anybody want to go back to that? I just can't fathom that. Ray, were you going to ask a question?
Yeah.
Before we close?
Just a couple of quick comments. When people say this to me about, is it one of them? I just say, well, firstly, if what I'm saying that this is the greatest health product that's ever been discovered, would you want to take it? And they say yes. I say, regardless of how it's made available in the world. So that's the first comment that I wanted to make. And they always say, yes, I would want to take it. I've never had someone say no because it was sold that way. It was, if it's that, yes, if it's that good, I want it. Secondly, what Dan was saying before is very important for all the listeners to appreciate. These results are inevitable. They are absolutely inevitable. When you understand what redox signaling molecules are, they cannot not work. That's impossible. But there is a time period, 3 to 4 months for 90% of people to see that they're working. And for some people, it's longer.
Right.
And the dose does matter. So you can accelerate the journey, but you can't jump to what Mal said and you get a result 5 minutes ago. That doesn't happen. You'd have to go to the great JC for that. So if you want to work with the best health product in the world, you need to give it 3 to 4 months to see results, maybe more. And you need to work up to correct the amount of deficiency that you individually have. That's where the uniqueness comes in, because no two people are exactly alike, except to say they're deficient. There is no test for how deficient you are. Right. There is no test. We don't have a test for that. So you've got to find the sweet spot. So if you find the 2 cups a day is not working for you, don't. If you find the 4 cups a day is not moving things as fast as you would like in 2 months, go to 6 cups a day. Because you will find, if you do that, where the results will roll in. And that's secondary to what Dan mentioned about sharing it with family and friends, because some of them might have a quicker result than you, and that will give you the belief as well. So give it time and work up the dose.
Thank you so much, Ray, for that. I really appreciate it. And again, this technology is native to everything alive. It cannot hurt, harm anything. So I just wanted to throw that in because someone asked about children. Mal, last bit of advice, last bit of your best advice ever you could give. And same thing for you, Dan.
Well, with a business like this, it's really important that you work with somebody that can help you. So find somebody in your support group. Embrace the change. This is about developing you, because we will attract who we are. One of the things that I've been sharing with people recently is, if people often say, well, how do I find a leader? How do I find one of these visionaries? How do I find an entrepreneur? I took this from Joe Dispenza. I was listening to some of Joe Dispenza's work recently. And what he said was, and he was applying it to something else, but take out a sheet of paper and write down every quality that you want to find in a leader, every quality you want to find: resilient, hardworking, patient, determined, big dreamer, big thinker, great work ethic, teachable, coachable, kind, generous, motivated, prepared to put the yards in, all of the things that you want to find in a great leader for your organization. And then you become that. You become that list. All too often, we're trying to find people that we're not. The world and the universe works like attracting. We will attract who we are. And so if you write that list down, become that list, and you'll attract those people. But work with somebody that's moving right now in your upline, somebody that's running on gold. The best people to work with right now are not always the highest ranking people and not de-edifying anybody, but in my organization, I'm saying find somebody that's running on gold. Find somebody that's running on diamond in your upline, because they're the ones that are in the trenches now, building the business right now. Follow their excitement and work with them. Danny and I used to do third-party calls with Doyle all the time. Actually, funnily enough, I'll just share this very quickly. We did one recently. I had Danny Doyle on a call in America. And then he ghosted both of us. It was like, people think, it's all right for you guys. So here he has the number 2 with Asea in the world, and you know, I'm further down the pecking order, but we still get ghosted by people, and people think, oh, it's all right for them, everybody gets in. Please don't ever think that. You know, it never works like that. We're still dealing with the same stuff. You know, it's just just part of it. But anyway, find somebody you can work with. Work on yourself. Work on yourself. I was listening to Jim Rohn yesterday. Work on you as much as you work on your or more on you than you work on your business. Work on you, develop you, and everything else kind of falls into place from there.
Wow.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
So
Dan, I want you to top that.
No, I know. I was supposed to be on a call 6 minutes ago, but then no.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I've been here with you guys. Just some of the subjects I went through on this training. As I said, people can access it. They can go to my Facebook, and I elaborate on obviously making a decision. So everybody on the call has made a decision. Obviously, hopefully you stick to your guns, guys. As Mal said, develop a recruiting mindset. That's a big deal. Make friends, not from a prospecting point of view, but from a friendship point of view. Develop positive, productive daily habits. And, you know, people are busy chasing their tails. They need to get into income generating activity. If they're not generating an income, people aren't getting this incredible product into their hands. Go out and tell good stories. Become a storyteller. Whatever that may be, personally or about the company or about the comp plan or whatever, just become a good storyteller. Questions are the answers, of course. So we need to know what people are looking for in life before we know. The conversation will go from there. Don't put any pressure on anybody at all. Keep your why at the forefront. So as we know how important that is, it's going to make you bulletproof. Be a leader, not just a recruiter. Be genuine and ethical. Don't take rejection personally, and recruit with your heart. Get out there and build this with your heart, guys. This is the most compelling, amazing opportunity we will come across in our entire lives.
Exciting.
Wow.
This is great.
Guys, that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop there. That was beautiful. Dan Doyle, you guys are amazing. Mal, you both are phenomenal people. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is a keeper. This is one I am going to re-listen to. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Guys, the recording will be up will be in Asea United if you're part of that. Lee Osler's on a camping vacation right now, so he will have it up a little bit later on in a couple of hours. So please go there and get that message. Again, Dan Doyle, it was what was your website again, Dan? AseaDanDoyle.com is where your story is.
If you go to YouTube, Asea Dan Doyle, just search Asea Dan Doyle. It's a 25-minute version, and anybody can use that however they want. Okay. If they want to hear some training, I did 30-minute training. Go to my Facebook, and that's the last post. One of the last.
All right, guys.
Thanks again.
Thank you. We will be back next Friday. We're not sure exactly what we're doing yet, but it's going to be awesome. We'll see you next Friday, guys. Thank you, Mal Sword. Hopefully the fishing is better for you tomorrow, and it is 3:09 in the morning where Mal is. So Mal, thank you so much for your sacrifice.
That was so generous.
Love you guys.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mal.
See you, Doyle. See you, Ray.
See ya.